Have you got some great songs but no one is listening? Are you struggling to find your audience? Worry no longer. Go to musiciansmap.org/free-book and download a copy of the free ebook, How to Get Your Music Heard. It talks about growing your fan base, finding your niche and getting your music out there. The essential foundations you need and the steps to take to get your music heard. How to Get Your Music Heard. Get it now at musiciansmap.org/free-book.
I think basically, actually, Jimi Hendrix was my first big guitar obsession. I kind of lost my shit for him for a while. And then, am I allowed to swear on here,
Yeah,
Kane?
you can say whatever you want.
Realised that.
You can say anything.
Oh, can I? Okay. Shit.
Welcome to the podcast. There was this really good local music promoter in East London around 2011 to 2013 who used to book my band Death in Texas. She put on good shows and she was great to work with, which was a rarity for us at the time. And after 4 or 5 shows together, we discovered that she was an accomplished musician herself. Her name is Cara Sebastian, and she performs as a solo artist and in a group called Marine. And she's my guest today. She shares how she started in music, the formation of Marine, working with producer Rob Ellis, and signing to the Vinyl Factory. We also talk about her solo work, what it means to be an artist, and the relationship between music and visual art. We caught up over Skype.
Jimmy, yeah. I listened to Little Wing on repeat, and actually I got my hands on the tab, and it was maybe the only time in my life I've actually sat and worked something out that was painfully hard for me and just chipped away at it day after day. And basically, I went and I sold my saxophone for an electric guitar in secret. And I kept my electric guitar on the roof of my house. My bedroom opened up onto a flat part of roof, and I put it under waterproof stuff in a box and just left it outside my window. So nobody knew I had it for a while. Because I was in trouble. I got in trouble for that one. I didn't do a very good trade, and it wasn't a particularly good guitar. I remember it's one of those kind of knockoff. It was called Westfield. I think the brand was Westfield. And then I chipped away at Jimi Hendrix for a while. And then, I think from there, PJ Harvey took me down the rock route. And also, I'd never really heard a singer sing like she does. And that took me into sort of wanting to explore my voice more as well.
And so you were playing guitar before you kind of started singing?
I think I've always sung, but it was like sort of teenage girl singing, I guess. You know, I sang with my girlfriends, and we had we did harmonies, and we covered pop songs, or we wrote our own slightly naff songs. Actually, they're probably not that bad. I don't want to dress down the songs that we wrote together. And yeah, I'd always fancied myself as a fairly decent pop singer, but actually, as I got more into rock, I wanted a slightly different voice, I think. So yeah, singing throughout my childhood, when I was on stage, and I used to sing with my mum at the piano. She loved coming home with a new music book that I could sing over, and me and my sister would sometimes sing together at the piano. Sometimes it was kind of cheesy musical stuff, or opera. We'd have a little bash, have a little sip of Baileys, and stand at the piano singing. Yeah, so it's kind of a really mixed bag. No definitive musical influence, I would say, or just little bits feeding in. I always feel like I'm a writer that plays music to go with my writing rather than a musician that writes.
Yeah, sure.
I would say the writing felt the most instinctive and like it just kind of came from me, and the spark to want to sort of reflect and write about emotions. It would have been my friends probably that led me there.
When did you start kind of performing?
So when I was in secondary school, me and... It's quite funny, actually. I never had thought about this until you just asked me this question just now. It's literally never crossed my mind. But I started a girl band But
Cool.
I was at an all-girls school, so there wasn't really any choice. So I've never thought to myself that it was a girl band. It was just who was there.
Yeah.
And we had this wonderful band, no, it's quite silly, called Lex with 2 X's.
Yeah.
And we were like, maybe like 14 or 15. And I wrote songs about a boy that I liked that didn't text me back. I think we did a cover of Red Hot Chili Peppers, Under the Bridge. Yeah. Oh, and REM for some reason. We also did an REM song.
Cool.
Anyways, so that was my first live performance, was getting up on stage at the all-girls school I was at and playing the guitar there.
Maybe if you could talk us through a little bit of how you formed Marine and how that sort of came about.
London, as we both know, is like this sort of, it's a very lively scene, and you meet the same faces over and over and in different places, and it's quite nice being a musician in London in that way. I think it was through the Underbelly, actually, how I met you. And Ruby came to perform with her band that she was fronting as a solo musician then, and she asked me to sing backing vocals for her band. And we went to a festival and we talked about how folk music was like where our hearts were at, but that we wanted to try the electric guitar. Like we were kind of like being kind of naughty by a campfire, and we were sort of like going like, yeah, like having a little tantrum, like I just want to, I want to crank it up loud and, annoy some people, be loud. It felt like the music that we were both playing, because I was playing acoustic music as well at the time, was a little more polite than we felt, or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm speaking on her behalf here, but that's how I felt. But yeah, so then we decided to go out. We were like, yeah, let's just do this together then, like let's go to a shop and buy a cheap electric guitar each, and then let's learn to play them together. Because I'd started on an electric guitar, but I'd kind of like left that a long time before and started listening to Annie DeFranco, and I'd been based on the acoustic steel string guitar for a long time. And I wanted to go back and learn it properly, and I wanted to use pedals and make like sounds that weren't necessarily like recognizable as guitar sounds and things. And so, we'd just go to her house. Her boyfriend would make us dinner sometimes. We'd have some wine and like write little guitar licks together and like jam over the top of what other people we'd come up with. And then anyway, so we wrote together and we came up with the concept for Marine as sort of a direction, because we weren't sure how to write with another person. It'd always been, it's quite a strange feeling to feel like you're sort of you're the captain of what you're doing. So direction's very definite, but you don't necessarily want it to be sometimes. So having another influence, like slightly take away, your definition of what kind of music you think you want to make, and then help you blur that out and make something much more interesting. So we were kind of doing that with ideas, but we were a little bit tentative, and we needed a focus point in the distance, maybe. It felt like a little bit of an oblivion of ideas that we could just fall forever into. So we just gave ourselves a little marker, which was this like myths and fables idea, which I don't know if did you know about that with Marine?
Yeah.
We So we based our songs on sort of myths, legends, fables, other things as like a starting point. Yeah, and then basically we started kind of coming up with those ideas, but we knew we wanted a rhythm section at some point. But it was quite nice because we were writing together. It afforded us time to just let the right musicians kind of cross our path. So then Kaya crossed my path when I was working at the Underbelly, a music venue as well. And she had a project, but it was with a drummer, with a musician in Germany. So she didn't have any music projects in the UK where she just started living. So I just asked her if she wanted to give it a go. And she did, and we did, and it just went click, and that was nice.
Yeah.
And she's just like one of the warmest people in the world. So it was just like an immediate friendship, as well. And then Beth, at some point later down the line, crossed my path as well. And again, we didn't have to do like many, like, oh, let's try it out with loads of different bass players or drummers or whatever. Like, it was just, they naturally kind of wandered into our lives, and then we were just very grateful, and it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just it just happened really slowly. To be honest, I should really spice this story up because it needs it needs a little something. Basically, it was just really lovely,
Yeah.
and it just happened quite naturally over time.
How nice.
Yeah.
Now, I've kind of known about Marine since you first started, because I knew you before you started Marine, and I used to come to your gigs and stuff. And I was listening. I was listening to both of your EPs, and now I've seen that you have got an album coming up, but I can't find your EPs online. What's happened there, and what are you guys kind of? What are you doing?
What happened? Yeah. Well, you might well ask. Yes. Well, so we self-released the first 2 EPs, which you've heard. I mean, I love those recordings. I think we all do, actually. But because we didn't play very, like, widely, I don't think we played, like, a huge span of the country, or... I mean, we did some touring in Germany. We did quite a lot south and west of England or whatever. And we hand burnt, because we were quite strapped for cash. We hand burnt and hand designed for a while some CDs, and we couldn't afford to do another batch. So it kind of leveled out. We'd sold them at gigs and had them up for a while, and then it was time to think about recording something. It was just quite fortuitous. We were looking into producers that we would want to work with in the future, is what we thought at the time. We were like thinking, okay, when we make like a full album, wouldn't it be great to work on a full album? Because EPs were quite, not fashionable, but it was quite the done thing for a while to make a short 2, 3, 4 song. Yeah, and I thought that was quite a nice bit of time, actually, where you kind of took away a sort of souvenir, and it almost acted like a long single, A-side, B-side in a way. Made you really pay attention to the songs, because there's a lot of musicians were only making, short EPs.
Yeah.
But actually, it just became more of a sort of satisfying idea to work towards a full album. And we thought about the artwork, and, our dream was to get it pressed on vinyl, which we are actually doing. We never thought we would. We talked about it a lot, but we thought we were chatting a lot of breeze. We thought that wasn't ever going to manifest. On the top of our list was Rob Ellis, who, as I mentioned, one of the records that changed my little path was PJ Harvey, Rid of Me. Great album, right?
Yeah.
Have you heard it?
Yeah, of course. Obviously. Yeah, it's an amazing album.
It's a wild album, and it's Steve Albini producing, Rob Ellis's engineer, and he's playing drums. And I basically sort of air drummed to that album since I was a teenager until now. So he really made it onto my list.
Yeah. At
the very top. And then, we got a reply from him so fast after sort of putting out feelers. We just said, like, would you, are you taking projects? And yeah, and he agreed to come to London. He lives in the south of England. And he agreed to drive down and come and see our gig just for the night. It was a very long drive for him. So, obviously, like, I was like almost fainting with nerves, because I was getting like all hyped up, and like my 15-year-old self was like freaking out. But we chatted to him afterwards and had a beer, and he liked it, and he wanted to work with us. And that was a real shining, crazy moment for me, I think for us as a group as well. It happened more quickly than we thought, and he only had space in his diary to work on another record, because he was just about to go on tour with Marianne Faithfull for quite a long time, a long tour, I think. And he had a very, very small window, and we didn't really think we were going to get it together in time, to be honest. And we just decided that we had like a whole bunch of songs we wanted to record. We wanted to group together the 2 EPs that we'd already released and have like a sort of body of work, like a storybook, I guess, because I think we wanted to draw everything together in terms of sound, have something really like a consistent piece of work. It was like, it seemed like the right time to sort of draw everything together, even though it was a little bit rushed. And we wanted to seize the opportunity, you know, we wanted to say yes to the adventure of trying to get it all together. And so we did. And it meant that we re-recorded quite a few of the songs that were on the first two EPs. But then again, not that many people had heard it. So we were like, well, if we get in touch with a label, if a label wants to release this album, we're releasing it for the first time to the majority. So that's how that happened. So we took down the previous EPs to release the new singles, and 2 of them are out, and the rest are coming in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah. So, okay. So you've kind of been experimenting with songs and writing and releasing and kind of finding your feet. And then there's come a point where you've been given this opportunity to record an album, and you've thought, great, let's take what we've done and what we want to do and kind of combine it into a cohesive sort of body of work.
Yeah, I mean, we had such a good time recording the first 2 EPs, and then there was a couple of recordings in between as well, Rapunzel and Red Fruit, which we recorded with Gordon Raphael, who is the producer on The Strokes, This Is It, and some other Regina Spektor and things. So we'd worked with one of our heroes already, but with those 2 singles, they'd kind of like born in this kind of gap of time, I guess, but quite beautifully in a way, I thought, because it gave us the opportunity to make a substantial video for one of the singles. We made to date, our only official video for Rapunzel, which we did with Gordon.
Yep.
And then Red Fruit later as a single. And so it just seemed like, we've had all these like wicked little adventures and bitty bits and handmade kind of bootleggy CDs, and I guess we felt like we'd reached maybe like a reflecting point or something.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, in the grand scheme of things, 3 years isn't like a huge amount of time to be playing in a band together, but it just felt like a good point to just draw all that together, make something that we were really proud of. And so we worked really hard with Rob, and he worked really hard for us. And the grand chapel where we recorded, and we recorded everything that we've done, are like our family, and they were just amazing, you know, and everybody made it happen, you know? We just said yes, you know, because everybody was just in it. And when everyone says, okay, let's do it, you just say, let's do it, and we did it, you know?
Yeah. Now, so you'd gotten in touch with Rob, and he'd come on board, and you'd gone out and you're going to do a recording at the chapel, which is such a beautiful studio.
Yeah.
How did you come to release it with the Vinyl Factory? How did you meet those guys, and how did that come about?
Through friends, I was introduced to Vicky, a sort of managing director at the Vinyl Factory, and it just started with a conversation with her, really, about what we were up to. We played her the music, and they were immediately willing to release it, and it was the first conversation that we'd had with a label about it. They just really seemed like the perfect fit to me, and I think to the other girls as well. You know, you work on songs, you craft them, and you rehearse them, and you play them out, and you worry about if people are going to like them sometimes, and then you have these good gigs and these bad gigs, and then you record them, and then you mix, and it's a really, really long process, and we just wanted to keep things moving, you know? The fact that this wonderful, art-loving label was willing to work with us, it just seemed like a really perfect relationship. And yeah, so we've gone with it.
Yeah, well, what have you been up to solo-wise?
Well, I've been writing and recording and just working really, really slowly towards a full album on my own. Well, not on my own, because I'm going to have quite a lot of people playing on the record, but they haven't added their parts yet. But basically, while Marine have been playing and stuff, just a friend of mine, a producer, really great producer, Fiona, and I have just like snuck in for late night recording sessions in East London in Hoxton. She has access to recording time there. So we challenge ourselves a couple of times a month to write a song in a day and then record it that day. So we've done that. Well, we've got 9 songs so far, and it's been pretty nice. They're quite hypnotic, kind of spaced out, folky, psychedelic stuff, inspired by what I listen to, like quite a lot of 70s folk and bluesy swing and other things. And yeah, and I'm just starting to play them out. Got my first gig with like a little miniature choir of my friends.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's going to be it's going to be quite sweet because I get to share a stage with my best friends. Like 5 of my friends are singing in unison mostly, but with some quite nice, slightly unusual backing vocal parts and harmonies. And then my guitar counterpart since I was about 18, Tom, he's putting his wonderful guitar playing all over the top as well. His trippy guitar playing all over the top as well. So yeah, so we've got a gig coming up with them as well, like as that setup. Sorry.
So you guys, you're going into the studio and you're writing and recording a song in one day. What's like? How's that work creatively?
Yeah, what compels you to do that? You can ask. It's fine.
No, it sounds amazing. Like that sounds totally awesome, and it sounds kind of really like a really interesting way to approach it.
We shall see if the results are any good. I mean, I'm really enjoying it. I guess because we work in marine, we work really in depth. It was nice to have something alongside of it the last year that was just really, really spontaneous. Yeah, so I work a lot and I have, a lot of interests as painting and playing as much as I can and different things. And I like to go and see a lot of music. So I don't get that much time. So then, the challenge was born out of necessity in a way, I guess. The fact that I didn't have that much time and that the recording space is free, but that it's like a full studio with like amazing like microphones and amps and different guitars and drum kits and just amazing equipment, plate reverb, like real plate reverb, just awesome things, and you can just use whatever you want. So we just both wanted to do something fun together. So it started like that. So I would just wake up in the morning and try and get like a simplified idea, not push it too hard because I don't like to force things, but if an idea came and I was on a roll with it, then we would record that night. And I would have a very, very like shaky, tentative vocal because I had no idea what I was doing or singing, and I was just looking at scribbled, frantic, slightly panicky notes, and and it was just nice, And Fiona's, she's really skilled, but she's also a really inspiring and sweet person. So it's been nice to have these like late sessions with her. So that's kind of how it happened, and I still had these like little tales I wanted to tell, and also I feel sometimes that there are 2 sides of my music taste and my music, and that reflects my music output as well, like softer, like slightly more intuitive or hypnotic and lo-fi, I guess would be a word that I could say.
Yeah.
And then the like harder rocks, sort of like I love a bit of distortion, I love dynamics, and it was always going to be necessary.
So you write these songs, and this is the material that you're going to be performing with a choir and a guitarist live. Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So how do they like? Do you record all of those parts in the original song, or are you just writing and recording ideas and then taking it to this group and are you arranging it for them?
It's more like the second thing you said. It's like in the studio I have quite distinctive ideas for layers and things that will happen, like backing vocals or guitar hooks and things like that, but they're not fixed because obviously at the time that they're recorded they're not fixed either. And so that's kind of nice though, because I think it's a bit of a privilege to be able to record without worrying about finances. You know.
Yeah.
So it's almost unheard of. So it is like being able to afford to sort of go in and just do something that you don't normally do. Take a chance, not go in there with every idea totally crystallized and with all its corners. To just go in there and risk risk that you might not get it, or that it might not sound how you wanted it to sound, or it's not even finished. It is definitely a privilege, but it means that I think it comes out a little bit more like the records that I like some of the old folky records that I like. Yeah, and then I take it to the girls, and we just, we've only played 2 gigs together, and that was a few months ago. Oh, longer, actually. My timeline is not very linear. But yeah, times that we did before we got together, and they were based on the ideas from the recording, but just with a little bit of freestyling. And also the girls who are singing with me, they're all singers in their own right. So they have ideas and, finesse. So you don't want to trample on anyone's finesse. Heaven forbid. Yeah. So you just want to let some of that happen and, let yourself be surprised. So I'm hoping there'll be lots of that in the run up to the gigs we've got.
It sounds like quite there's a purity to the process of and spontaneity that you'd have the ability to capture, because as you said, you're not always in that situation as an artist. You plan and you write and you rewrite and you consider, and then you get rid of it and you write something else, and then there's this whole process before you even get into the studio and put anything down. But if you're imposing this time limit, right, we have to have it done tonight. It's got to be recorded.
Yeah,
and it's a totally original idea, and then it's done and it's gone. And then you're taking it to people to work with and interpret in their way as well.
Oh, Kane,
awesome.
You've exactly got. You summed it up in a way that my brain hadn't even been able to summarize.
Nice.
Yeah, it just has that sort of fly by the seat of your pants type feeling, and that's kind of wonderful and not something it's always possible to do.
Yeah.
But I think, like you say, like restricting ourselves to the time limit. I've talked to people and I've heard people that say that they don't like to put pressure on themselves to write, and I would agree with that as well. Maybe I see the value in both or something. But when people are like, I'm going to go away for the weekend and write or something.
Yeah.
And that's quite hard to just say, this is when I'm going to have ideas. That's quite hard.
Yeah.
A weird thing happened when I was trying to paint and doodle recently. I realized I had too many colors. And I was like, I'm finding painting really hard with this many colors. I just added too much. And then I realized that my style had been born out of my means. I didn't have good painting equipment or nice brushes, even though like I said, my mum and my dad were painters. I just kind of doodled on mount board pieces or whatever. And I really liked using corrugated card as a paintbrush to apply paint and stuff like that. But that was just because I didn't really have any good paintbrushes at the time, and that had that defines the way that your means define how you put out your ideas, right?
Yeah, sure.
So if you could only practice in your garage, that's how you end up sounding garage or whatever.
It's totally. Yeah, if you have crappy equipment and you're surrounded by a certain in a certain community or whatever, you might come out to be country, or you might come out to be punk, depending on your on what you have and where you are.
Totally. And that's what I'm enjoying about recording like this with my friend Fee, is that it's a way of shaping the style of your music by the way that you make it and what you have at your disposal,
Yeah.
So if you only have this little amount of time and you only have yourself, I'm layering up different guitar lines and layering up voices, and that then leads us to find a group of voices to act as a choir, and so it's like that. It's quite nice not to necessarily imagine a whole complete thing and choose it and shape it without even doing it. It's kind of nice to let your environment shape what you're doing, I guess, or something like that.
Yeah. Your ideas for Marine from the very beginning, conceptual, and almost as visual and conceptual as they are musical. Can you kind of talk us through how you're collating all of this inspiration? You said you're a very visual person and a painter and an artist in many different kind of areas.
I never said that. I'm scared of ever saying that. But thank you. And I know, I do love to paint. I find calling yourself an artist really hard, and I'm not sure I feel like I'm there yet. But yeah,
that's actually kind of interesting. You from an outsider's perspective, you're very much an artist in multiple disciplines. So it's interesting to hear you say that maybe you don't consider yourself to be there yet. What is there?
I guess I feel like just too much of a goofball in general. I mean, that's not the real reason, I guess, but that is something like it. I just feel, I guess artists as a word, I don't know whether it is a word that other people find they kind of hold their breath around, or if it's just me because I have that up on a pedestal. I would love to truly, truly capture something, like whether it's expression of a feeling in paint, or whether it's when I'm playing in a band and we're all really cooking together, and like it's like a moment that you can't plan, like a good conversation. The jam just sort of bounces off each other until it hits a really great peak, or just like capturing like a feeling while you're recording and pressing that onto a CD or a vinyl or whatever, like, to really, really have pulled that off seems like kind of my life ambition, I guess. So when I just being scared of being pretentious, I guess, is something that is in a lot of people. To look inwards so much sometimes does feel like you're overthinking it, or you're getting a bit swept up in your own dramas or whatever. If you're reflecting on your experiences or your emotions too much, it does sometimes feel a little bit of a isolating thing, and it seems like quite a serious thing as well. And I think I don't think it has to be serious. I don't think you have to be like really, really serious in your person to be an artist. But I feel that I haven't learned enough, or I have captured what I wanted to capture a few times, but I don't do it consistently enough to be able to call myself that yet. That's maybe, I haven't really thought about it, so I'm sort of working it out as I speak to you. But yeah,
that's really interesting. I guess I kind of feel the same, but I'm becoming more accepting of the term, and I use it more frequently because I'm kind of finding the value of any kind of art to be quite high at the moment. And so whether anything that you are creating, whether it's with pretense or without, or whether it's just for creation, I'm kind of feeling like that is an artistic expression, and therefore that makes the expressor an artist. And I totally get what you're saying. It's
semantics,
kind of
isn't it, in a way?
Yeah, it is, but it's also the artist's curse, and it's the musician's curse. Like, you never really are totally happy with what you've done. Even like I've made records that I absolutely love, and I'm ecstatic with them, but there's always a little bit in the back of my mind where I think I could have done that better, or hey, that was a little bit too calculated, or this doesn't.
Really?
There is always that, and I think maybe it's something that everyone has, that we're always striving to reach that point, but I don't think we ever will, or I don't know if we ever want to. Do you ever? Because then would it take everything away?
Yeah, that's interesting, because I was talking to a friend of mine who makes videos the other day, and we were saying how, like, when we've been in between projects, we felt like kind of like this like listless sort of wafty, like we felt slightly sad and lost when we haven't got like a creative project, a creative outlet sort of set out. we were sort of saying how that's like, we're like worker bees, or, maybe we just like have to sort of reach goals or whatever. In terms of music and maybe art as well, it feels like a direction rather than a place or a thing. So what you're saying makes sense to me, because it's not something you ever want to reach. It's just like something that, it's like an impetus. It's like it helps move you around and spur you on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's a movement. It's a movement, not a like a moment or a photograph. It's not standing still. I would agree that it's quite rare to think like, oh, bloody hell, I've done it. Like I've absolutely nailed that.
Yeah.
And if you do think that, it is quite a fleeting moment, and it's surrounded by other things that you'd like to change. Maybe, well, this is just me, other people might be completely satisfied with what they made. But like, I feel like, having thought about it a bit recently, that music gives, just the way that I live, a direction and a context. And it's like it's the thing that moves me, like through making friendship groups and through different countries and through collaborations and learning about how to share a project with somebody. And it's just, it pulls you through all these things. Like maybe deep down you don't necessarily want to reach a finishing point.
Yeah, because then where do you go?
Yeah, because, well, if you do, then you have to just stop and stand still for ages, and then figure out a new thing that makes you want to move towards that or something. I think, maybe, I don't think it is something that you won't necessarily want to reach and finish. But although saying that, that feeling is so elusive of finishing something and it being like satisfied and wrapped in a bow, that actually, having said that you don't want to finish that is subconscious, because in reality you do feel the need to complete. What I do.
Yeah.
Again, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like with the art, and if you're doing your music, to finish the recording, have it exactly as you wanted it, with the art in the packaging, to have played the set as you intended, that is so hard to achieve in a way, to get everything to a point where you feel like it's tidy and complete. That is something that you do, that I strive for anyway. But maybe, yeah.
Do you think that different mediums can represent ideas better than others? You create music for Marine, but you also create quite a lot of the visual art for Marine, right? So,
yes.
Firstly, are you using the idea of Marine to create the art, and that's symbiotic with the music, or are you using the music as an inspiration to create that visual art? And therefore, do you feel that the visual art can represent an idea better than the music can, or is it the other way around, or are they kind of two sides of the same coin?
Juicy, intriguing question. Maybe it's surprising and maybe even disappointing how little thought that I have given that, because I like to be led by feeling things out. So with painting, I try to empty my mind, but sometimes that means that I'm listening to music. So for some of the marine art, like, I've deliberately played some of our music while I've been painting. So some of the marine art was deliberate, and I was listening to the music and just trying to feel out the marks of the paint. There's no like synesthesia or anything with me. Like Linda Perhacs, one of my heroes, my musical heroes, she had a synesthesia thing where she could see her music as colours, and her most famous song, Parallelograms, is a score that she saw in a sunset.
Wow.
From different colours.
Wow.
Yeah. It's really mind-blowing. Like, the art that comes with it is the painting that she did of the music. And the song is pretty wild. It's got this like djembe breakdown in the middle of it. But yeah, so basically I don't have anything as literal as that. I just like to sort of feel out the marks. Maybe it's a little bit like the mythology, as I said earlier, because I like to keep everything else really vague and abstract. Maybe it gives me just like a focus point, or like a tiny, tiny, tiny distant anchor to try and think about it as music and like let the music carry the marks or something. That sounds pretentious as well. I was but that could be one way. But also at the same time, like I was just going and practicing and writing with the girls and playing gigs and then coming home and painting. So those paintings were just made around the same time as the music. So that was kind of a phase of my personality more than a deliberate match.
Sure.
So for a couple of the singles and EP covers and stuff, we literally looked through all my paintings because I get rolls and rolls and rolls. Some are terrible, but there's just like a lot of paintings stacked up over the years. And we just looked through and, you know, picked things from around that time that seemed like they meant the same thing. So yeah, so it's a mix of deliberate, maybe a bit more expression, and yeah, just being of the same time. I'm not necessarily representing music with any paintings or representing paintings with music, but that they are, like you said about the two sides of a coin, maybe like if you think about 3D movies, maybe it's like it's like a way to complete an idea. So
Yeah.
So there's like an idea and there's like a heart to the song, like there's whatever you were trying to say. And then you've said it in words and then you've said it in music. And then maybe you've said it in art as well. And if you put a really nice video, if you get the video right and you do a really nice video for it, you've got that as well. And then it becomes almost like this like a circle. It doesn't have sides anymore. It's really just a complete expression, maybe.
Yeah.
It's what I've thought before when we've got it right, which is quite not rare that we get things right, but again, capturing a moment as completely as you want it to.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so powerful when that comes together. And I think you guys have nailed it. What was I watching? Your video, Rapunzel, is it? The other night.
Yeah.
I mean, that's with the song and how it sounds. Like your recordings are so beautiful, the sonically, you know, as well as musically, and with the video as well. It's really a powerful thing. And as an outsider, just you know, appreciating the art, you can really kind of see so much, or you can really feel so much more when there's the visual element, you know, alongside everything else. It's such an immersive experience, rather than just sort of listening to it, or if the art didn't match, if you were doing something entirely different, you know, maybe it wouldn't be quite so powerful.
Yeah, or maybe it would just be more intriguing because it wasn't it wasn't sending your imagination in one direction. It was like sending it in a couple of different ones. Not if that was deliberate, or, you know, that could be quite interesting to do that, to mismatch and, you know, get it wrong sometimes as well. Yeah, but I agree. Immersive is definitely.
And that's all for this week. Thank you to Cara for sharing her story and thoughts with us. You can check out her music at facebook.com/Cara Sebastian. Check out Marine at facebook.com/weareMarineMarine, wearemarine.com, and instagram.com/weareMarineMarine. Cara's choice for Artist of the Week is Linda Perhacs and her album Parallelograms. Follow the link in the podcast description to hear that. Also, make sure to like the Musicians Map Facebook page at facebook.com/musiciansmap. This podcast and the website musiciansmap.org is dedicated to sharing knowledge and advice about music and the music industry. It's all about community, honesty, and positive progress. The experiences, stories, and advice shared on the podcast are given freely with the hope that you can relate to them and benefit from them. If you have found this podcast enjoyable or useful, make sure to check out the Musicians Map ebook and audiobook about building success in music. You'll find it at musiciansmap.org/books, Amazon, and Audible. And buying a copy of the book directly contributes to the continuation of this podcast. There's also a free ebook, How to Get Your Music Heard. Go to musiciansmap.org/free-book to get your copy. If you have a suggestion for the podcast or for the YouTube channel, or you just want to get in touch and say hello, please do so via the Musicians Map Facebook group or by email at kane@musiciansmap.org. Thanks for listening and stay positive.